Hi, so this is the final video for Project 3 Week 1. I've done the cue cards once already and I didn't get them all right. I think I only got about half, so that is a fail. I'm going to try them again one more time just to see if I can do it and just for the video. So generalization is when an object is observed even though it is slightly different than the one that was previously observed. Spontaneous recovery is when a reaction can come back from extinction. Extinction is when the stimulus is presented for a long amount of time without the reinforcement, and so eventually the behavior just stops. Second order conditioning, I don't know that one. Acquisition is the pairing of a unconditioned stimulus and a conditioned stimulus. Classical conditioning is the process of pairing or making a neutral stimulus or a neutral object become a stimulus to an animal. Unconditioned stimulus, so this is something that produces an unconditioned response. And unconditioned response is a natural response to a stimulus. A conditioned stimulus is a stimulus that I don't know that one, so that's a neutral stimulus produces a response. A conditioned response is a response produced by a conditioned stimulus. A fixed interval schedule is when an object is or a reinforcement is presented at interval times. A variable interval schedule is when a reinforcement is presented at various times. A fixed ratio schedule is where it is a certain amount of times. So if it's I don't know what I'm just describing it, I don't even know the definition. A variable ratio schedule, I don't know that one. Intermittent reinforcement is getting reinforcement only a certain amount of times. Intermittent reinforcement effect. This is the effect where intermittent reinforcement helps with not becoming extinct. Shaping is where there's actions that slowly lead to the desirable behavior. Latent learning is where you learn something but it doesn't come into action until later on. A cognitive map is a map in your head of imagery map in your head. Yeah, I don't know the definition of that one. I was just trying to. Observational learning. Oh, that's when you learn a behavior by observing a different person. Diffusion chain is where you learn something from someone and you pass it on to the next person. Implicit learning is learning that happens without being aware. Semantic encoding is learning things and elaborating on what you have memorized or what you know. Visual imagery is memory that is the process of storing info. Organizational encoding is putting things you have learned into groups so then it's easier to memorize. Sensory memory is memory that only lasts for about 3 to 5 seconds. Iconic memory is a type of sensory memory that is involved with imagery. Echoic memory is a type of semantic memory that is involved with auditory. Short-term memory is the memory that lasts for about less than a minute but more than a couple seconds. Rehearsal is repeating something over and over so it gives you more memory time. Chunking is grouping items in your short-term memory to help you memorize something. Working memory is the maintenance of, the constant maintenance of your memory. Long-term memory is something that lasts for, basically for forever. Long periods of time, so that wasn't technically right. Anterograde amnesia is where you can't remember things after a certain date. Retrograde is when you can't remember things like before that certain date. Consolidation is the process of like concreting your memory. Reconsolidation is when you're upbringing a memory, so you retrieval. I don't know. Long-term potentiation, I don't know that one. Retrieval cue, I don't know that one. A punisher is something that will decrease the activity or decrease the likeliness of behavior. A reinforcer is something that will increase the likeliness of the behavior. Operant behavior is, I don't know that one. Law of effect is where punishments will lead to less of that behavior and reinforcers will lead to more of that behavior. Operant conditioning, I do not know that one. Why is that other place? Biological preparedness, I don't know that one. Discrimination, I don't know that one. Encoding specific principle is where it's easier to remember something when you're in that same place. State-dependent retrieval is it's easier to remember things when you're in the same state as when you memorized it. Transfer appropriate processing, I don't know that one. And retrieval-induced forgetting, that's where you retrieve something up and then it gets reconsolidated into a different memory. So that is everything. I got a little bit more than half, but still is considered a fail. So hopefully next week will be better.